Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We're very glad you're with us today. It is January 28th, 2022. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. If anybody has any landings, you're welcome to announce those landings. We'll then have everybody put their 30-second introductions into the chat box. We will then go to our committee reports. We'll hear about workshop, job fairs, the practice interview team, the interview success workshop. We'll then hear about the career tip of the week. And then we will hear from our speaker at the main event. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please open up the chat window. For those watching on Facebook, you're welcome to enter your questions into the comment field, and we'll be sure to get those answered for you. Please note this event is currently being recorded. It's currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, I took over facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job and asked who wanted to take over. And I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been doing that since. In 2008, I started a second website. I started the first website, careerdfw.org, to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search that you may not know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIC crew, and you'll hear more about that in just a moment. Well, we'd like to start the meeting off with success stories. Do we have any landings? Anybody have any landings they'd like to announce? Landings. Mark, do you have a landing to announce?
I do have a landing that I'd like to share. Thanks, Jeff. I don't think Carrie's his name. Carrie Jones, 20 years with the Coast Guard, retiring, came through the PIC crew 3 times to practice and has landed with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Association as an HR specialist focusing on compensation and classification analysis. So he's very pleased. This is the way things turned out. And so congratulations to Carrie Jones.
Great. Any other landings? Anybody else have good news to share? Yes, I'm dying for us all to get back together because I've missed all those donuts that we have missed over the last 2 years. So looking forward to getting back to donuts. All right, it's time now, if everybody will, open up the chat window, if you will, and put in your 30-second introduction. We want to know your name, your phone number, your email address, position you're looking for, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. What I will do is I will go and I will copy all that information over from the chat window, and I will put that out into an email this afternoon and see who you can help. How can you help someone else in their job search? So I'll put that information in the chat window. I also use that information to update the roster so that if you're counting this as a Texas Workforce or a Workforce Solutions event, please be sure to get your name on the put your name in the chat box so that way I can make sure I can update the roster. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. And for those people watching on Facebook right now, if you put your 30-second introductions into the comment field, I will delete it right after this event's over, so it won't hang out there forever and ever, but I'll get it and copy it to make sure it gets onto the roster that we hand out to everybody. Whoops. All right, it's time to hear about job, career fairs, training, and workshops that are going on. Good morning, Eldon.
Good morning, Jeff. Happy Friday, everybody. Just a quick warning here. I just got a flash in my computer that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully I won't fade in and out during this presentation. As Jeff said, I'm responsible for providing information on career and job fairs and special workshops or events. That information comes from the calendar tab on the website careerdfw.org, which is on the screen in front of you. The various color tabs on there indicate different topical separations on the calendar. Lots of things going on in the DFW area, so the calendar is a very useful item to go to frequently. All right, having said that, I go through these items fairly quickly. If you hear something that catches your ear, I urge you to go to the calendar, click on that item, and find out more about what it is you're specifically interested in. Usually you'll find a link with more information and/or to register for the event. All right, this week's career and job fairs. The on-site job fair by RPM Staffing will be held Wednesday, February 2nd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 217 North 10th Street in Garland. They're hiring packers, sanitation workers, and you need to register for that event. It looks like it's through the Texas Workforce from the website www.workintexas.com. The Dallas Career Fair by Choice Career Fairs will be held Thursday, February 11th February 3rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there is a link for more information to find out about that event. This week's special workshops or events, online LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Join Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, or Ruth Lipsky, Kurt Vondemunder each week for an online session on LinkedIn. Tuesday, February 1st from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. This week will feature Locke Alderson. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link to participate. Also online, the Who You Know Career Transition Summit we held Wednesday, February 2nd from 10 a.m. to noon. There's a link to register for that event, and that is hosted by Foster Williams, one of our local area recruiters. And if you don't know Foster, I strongly urge you to get to know Foster Williams. Online, interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m., Wednesday, February 2nd from 1 to 2:30 p.m. You can now observe a practice interview from the pit crew each Wednesday, and there's a Zoom link to observe that. Also online, the Effective Resume Seminar we held Thursday, February 3rd from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And there's a Zoom link and a Facebook link on the calendar to participate in that event. And I believe that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right, let's see here. If you happen to know anybody who's unemployed, we think the weekly unemployment numbers came out to 280,000 people applied for first-time unemployment benefits this past week. If you happen to know somebody who just got laid off or somebody who's unemployed, please let them know about Career DFW and Career USA, two totally free websites to help job seekers in their job search. All right, it's time to hear about the practice interview team. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. And I just posted up my contact information in the chat window. Let me talk for just a few seconds about Kerry Jones, because he worked for the Coast Guard. He was in the service of the Coast Guard for 20 years, and he practiced with the pit crew 3 times. We gave him a lot of help on how to translate what he did in the pit crew into civilian speak. And so he had never done anything else professionally. You know, I joined the pit crew as a young man and worked there for 20 years. So if you know any service members who are coming out, you know, there's all kinds of different ways the pit crew can help them, you know, besides just helping with their interviewing. And so, yeah, reach out if you know anyone. Give them the information about the pit crew. You can give them just the email address. If they send me a note, I'll send them everything they need to know to get started with the pit crew. But so what is that? So the pit crew offers practice interviews. The practice interviews are provided by volunteers. The volunteers have all been hiring managers in their past as part of their professional responsibility. And they've also all been through job transition. As a matter of fact, you know, 90% of them are in job transition right now, and they're donating their time to your benefit. And so we take the information that you provide, which is a job description and your resume, and we study up in advance. We come very well prepared to give you a practice interview, which is done on using Zoom technology. So the interview takes about 45 minutes. The whole session takes about an hour and 15 minutes. And so that last part of it, about the last 15 to 20 minutes, is feedback, which is something you won't get out of a real interview. You won't get any feedback on where you might have made a mistake or misrepresented yourself or misunderstood. So we encourage you to practice early and practice often, which means the more times you practice, the better you're going to get, the more confident you're going to be, the more situations you've encountered and you've figured out how you react to them. But also you can practice early, and that means you can practice before you even have a opportunity in hand. So you don't have to wait till a recruiter's called you up and said, I'd like to talk to you, or I just got one today. You already had the first screening interview and you're going on to the second interview. You can practice well before that. Just pick out your dream job description. It may be something even out of town that you would never relocate to, but the point is it's a job description that you'd like to practice against, and then you'll just be that much further ahead when you get that call. And if it's on a short cycle, you've already practiced, you've already received some feedback, you already know how to tell your story well. So that's what the PIC crew is about. The PIC crew has sessions on 4 times a week now. So we have fixed days and fixed times. Tuesday evenings at 5 and 6:15. So there's 2 sessions on Tuesday evenings, one on Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock and one on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So when you send in your information, would you please select your first and second choice there, your first date and time and your second date and time, and we'll get you set up right away. So the PIC crew also offers one-way practice interviews. We have a tool that's been donated to us. So if you'd like to do just practice, just figure out how one of these one-way interview tools works, then just reach out to me. The PIC crew provides you the questions in advance. We're really just trying to get you comfortable with using the tool. So we're making it as easy as we can. We'll give you the questions in advance so you don't have to be concerned about what kind of questions you're going to get. And you'll get a recording afterwards. Nobody else will see that. It's just for you. So that's the one-way interview. There's my LinkedIn profile. I encourage you to link in with me and just send a note that said we met on North Dallas Career Focus Group. And also I coach on one topic. I coach on how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job? And so if that's something that is going to cause you angst or you're uncomfortable on how you might answer that question, then let's have a conversation and we'll figure out how to answer that, first initial question, but also any follow-up questions. So you and I'll have a confidential session and we'll kind of storyboard the whole approach to answering that question. It's pretty important that you cover that well with brevity and confidence. So we can work on that. And let me just mention that before I mention this, is that the PIC crew's always looking for volunteers. Last year, 2021, I had 10 panelists, the interviewers, land. I went back and added it up. I thought it was 8, but it was actually 10. So I need, now I need like 8 more people to join the PIC crew to help others practice interviews. So I have enough people, on those different days. So if you've been a hiring manager, it doesn't matter what field you've been in or how much experience you've had at it. If you've been a hiring manager, you meet the prerequisites to join the PIC crew. So reach out to me and you can call me or contact me through the email and I'll tell you some more about that. And then let me highlight, I think the next slide Jeff is going to show is going to highlight that for 2022 on Wednesday afternoons, those practice interviews at 1 o'clock are available for observers to watch. And so this is something we used to do when we met face to face. So you can learn a lot by watching someone else practice. But I have to say, knowing is not doing. So it's not a substitute for practicing, but it will give you some insight in the things that people do that are really powerful. And you can, no worry about plagiarizing. You can plagiarize as much as you want. And then you may see a few things that are less than fully effective that you don't want to do. But that's what happens on Wednesday afternoons. And how do you find information about that? I think you go to careerdfw.org and look on Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and there'll be a link to the session. It's every Wednesday at 1. Jeff will tell you more about that. Thanks.
Mark, thank you very, very much. All right, let's see here. Walt. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. I also like to help people with their interviewing skills. And so after I retired and my wife passed away and said, gee, what are you going to do now? And I had worked with some interviewing problems of my own in my history. So I said, oh, let me find out what's going on. And I found the PIT group, which is a fantastic service that Mark leads and provides. But I also looked at it and said, there's something else that's missing here. And that is, what are the fundamentals of interviewing? How do we sell ourselves? So if we can learn how to sell ourselves, then we can apply those basic and those fundamentals into our real interview. Now, today, in the past, I've used basketball as a metaphor, and then I used baseball. Today, I'm going to pick hockey. And so if you can't skate and fight, you're not going to get on the ice. I mean, that's just two requirements. There's a third option, which is missing teeth. So you have to have generally those three things to get on the, to be able to play on the hockey team. Well, what do you have to have in interviewing? How do you sell ourselves? And they're the components of who we are, what we do, and how we can help. I see a lot of interviews focus on the I do part, my experience, my background, certifications, education, etc. A little bit on the I am, the soft skills, the characteristics, the likability factor. In fact, if you don't fit on the culture side in that, the other two don't matter. And the third one is how we help. And I see almost nothing in interviews that focus on how we help them. They hire us to achieve and do certain things. We need to find out what they are, discover what they are, and then demonstrate how we can use our skills and our experience in order to achieve those things. So that's what the workshop focuses on. So we cover 12 basic categories of questions. We go over the options, strategies. There's different ways to answer questions. They all depend on the question itself, who's asking, and where you are in the process as to how we might formulate a response to that. So we cover those 12 and do it online. And it's very informal. You don't have to worry so much about the stress and the anxiety of coming up with a response. You're allowed to start over. You're allowed to stop and think, pausing, so you can get your answer clarified in your mind. Those are great habits to form, and you get into a real interview. So I registered to attend. Look me up on LinkedIn on my Walt Glass page. The About section talks about the workshop. Send me an email to my Yahoo email address, which is reserved just for the workshop, and I can get you scheduled. I reserve Tuesdays from 9 to 11 Central as the standard time. But if demand occurs and we need some more, we can also schedule some other as needed. So I'd be glad to have you come on down, and we can have a fun time learning without squirming. Does interviewing create aggravation with responses adding consternation? Well, while you're on your job vacation, practice interviewing solves this situation.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. All right, it's time to hear the career tip of the week, which you'll find on the Career DFW and Career USA websites. There's a new tip every week. So good morning, Liz.
Well, good morning, good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. The tip of the week is when to sound more confident in job interview. Tell the recruiter you're nervous, says Google's head of recruiting. This is by Morgan Smith. Interviews can be nerve-wracking, whether you're sitting across from a hiring manager in an office or speaking to them on a video call from the comfort of your couch. But interviews are an important part of the hiring process. These conversations give you a chance to show off the skills in your resume and learn more about an organization to help you determine whether an opportunity is the right fit for you. Remember, an interview isn't an exam. It should be a conversation. This is from Google's global head of recruiting, Brendan Castle, tells CNBC, make it. A successful job interview starts with preparation, researching the organization, practicing your responses to possible questions, and planning how to follow up with the interviewer after your conversation. Consider these 3 interview strategies from Castle that can help you stand out and land your dream job. Strategy 1, acknowledge your nerves. It might feel counterintuitive at first to tell an interviewer that you're nervous, but Castle knows that acknowledging your nerves can help calm you down and organize your thoughts during difficult parts of the conversation. Strategy. We understand that you're a human and it's okay to be yourself and own your feelings, he says. If you're really struggling during an interview, Castle suggests taking a deep breath and politely asking your interviewer for a brief pause. For example, you can tell them, I'm a bit nervous. Can I take a moment before responding? He says. We actually quite respect statements like that because it shows how much you care about the opportunity and that the interview means a lot to you. It's perfectly okay to show that. Strategy 2, ask questions to the interview. Candidates should feel empowered to ask questions about the position or company throughout the interview, not just at the end. You're also assessing your companies for the next step in your career. Castle suggests asking these 3 questions to help you gauge an organization's priorities and show that you would be a highly engaged employee. How would you define success for the person in this role? When you think about your own career and transition to this company, what did you learn about yourself on that journey? What is it about the company that keeps you motivated and excited to go work every day? Strategy 3, don't badmouth your previous employer. It's important to focus on the opportunities you're running toward during the interview instead of the experiences you're running away from. Castle warns against complaining about the companies you've worked at in a really negative tone. And instead, he recommends you tell a recruiter what qualities you're looking for in your next role. Complaining about a previous employer might be my biggest don't during the interview. We don't know what happens in other organizations, but we really want to understand why us versus why not another company. Good luck, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Liz, thank you very, very much. All right, coming up in just a couple minutes, we'll hear from Elizabeth Lyons talking about job seeking post-pandemic 2022. I want to talk about upcoming sessions. Next Friday being the first Friday in February, we will have open forum. We'll talk about whatever issues you want to talk about. And then on February 11th, Mike Coffey will be with us to talk about background checks. Mike leads a background check company, a professional company, and he will talk about all the nuances and things about background checks because most of us will have to go through one when we get our next job. All right, it's time for our main event. Elizabeth has been with us many times over the last several years. She's an author. She's written a few books. She's a speaker like she's doing to us. She's a career coach. She's a talent acquisition leader. I love the last one. She's an internal optimist. So Elizabeth, thank you for being with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks for having me. Hey, this is a new laptop for me. Is the audio sound okay?
Sounds
Yes.
great.
Okay, great. You want to bring the slides up for me, Jeff?
Oh, okay. I was, let me go get them. I didn't know that. All right.
Sorry. Sorry. So here, while you're doing that, my name is Elizabeth Lyons. Thanks for having me today. I am a career coach, I don't know, like 20 years or so now. I am the author of 3 books. The second book that I wrote might be of great interest to you. It's called I Quit. Working for You Isn't Working for Me. And book sales are doing pretty well the last few weeks, to be honest with you. The last one that I wrote is called Heroes for Unapologetic Women Leading in Corporate America. I thought I wrote a book about women's leadership. I actually wrote a book for everybody. So that's kind of cool. So I'm here today to give you some market updates on the economy and what to kind of expect going forward. It's not a really long presentation, but it'll give you some ideas about how to kind of position yourself and what's on the horizon in 2022. Okay, let's look at the next slide real quick. Thanks, Jeff, for driving for me. Appreciate it. So what I want to touch on is 2022 and how the world is changing. And oddly enough, it keeps changing. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've certainly noticed that it keeps changing with what offices are going to pull their employees back to work, what offices are going to mandate a vaccine or not, what offices or companies are actually going to keep employees remote and open up more positions to remote to broaden their talent pool, considering that it appears that the talent pool is small. What I'll show you today is the talent pool isn't small, actually. Many are looking. So it's not as much a shortage of people. It'll really be about passive candidates and how to attract them in. I read a statistic yesterday from one of the big houses, Randstad actually, and they said for every 1 candidate, 12 recruiters is calling them. So that's a big number. The deal here is in 2022, you'll get another job. There's really no problem with that. The problem is where you go, because everything is going to sound great. And if you don't vet that opportunity very carefully, you could end up with more problems, more work, more money, but more hassle. And so that to me would be something to consider. So we'll talk about the biggest mistakes that people make in their job search today in 2022. And then I really want to talk about strategy, right? I'm big on strategy and planning, not just getting another job or getting more money. So next slide, please. So this is a slide about me. I think I already talked about that, but I'm Elizabeth Lyons. Thanks for having me. I'm the author of 3 books. You know, there's a lot of coaches out there. I've been coaching a long time, and interestingly enough, there's more and more coaches. So I think it's important just to touch on why I might be a little bit different. One of it is I was in the game for a lot of years. I hired people for more than 20 years. So I literally worked with executive teams. I selected those candidates. I brought those candidates to vice presidents, directors, and senior managers. I gave my input on that candidate pool, and then I tracked that all the way to hire. And I did that for many, many years. Now I actually, as of last year, I did a job change, and I actually run a global team. I have members in India and other countries and the US. So my team does the heavy lifting now, and I orchestrate the process, making sure that we're doing all the things we need to do legally, and also giving hiring managers a lot of choices. So I've been in the game a long time. I'm still in the game. I think that makes me a little unusual for a coach. I'm definitely current. I'm definitely looking at hiring trends every day. I'm definitely looking out into the market, any warning signs that I see in the market, still bubbling that up and still working with C-level players and vice presidents to give them information so that when they hire, they can make good decisions for their team. So that's what's going to delineate me just a little bit different from other coaches. Next slide, please. Okay, so I don't know if you caught this in the news, but about 2 weeks ago, they stopped calling it the great exodus, the great, turnover kind of stuff. They're not calling it that. They're calling it the great onboarding now. So this year we're expecting a lot of offers. Interestingly enough, here's some statistics on this slide, which gives you a sense of what we're seeing out there. Qualtrics talked about how many people are looking for jobs within the next six months. When I read a report out of Goldman Sachs 6 months ago, so about fourth quarter of last year, they said recession is unlikely to happen in 2022, but definitely in 2023. They're seeing indicators of that now. We're slowly seeing indication of that now as well, in terms of housing market is starting to fall a little bit. The concern is the bubble will actually burst there. We're starting to see some of the indicators that will pull us into recession. So really, if you're going to make a job change, this is a great year to do it, to take a job, take a good job, and be there a period of time so that you can have some accomplishments. And then when recession happens, hopefully you've got enough there that you will not suffer a layoff, and you've got enough to really kind of prove your worth there. So that would be a good strategy walking away. In the second bullet I do want to point to, it talks about the demographic of the job pool. So because that's very interesting. We're really looking at mid-level skills is what we're looking at that are definitely looking. I read a statistic, I'll have to see if I can't find the article, but it was 40% of people in Dallas right now are looking for another position. Number one reason is they want remote work. Number two reason is that they want more money. So that points to there are people out there, companies can hire, particularly in our market, that people are definitely willing to take phone calls from recruiters, but it's really, it's not a talent shortage anymore. People are out there and looking, but those are the reasons why they would actually make a job change. And then the last bullet here, 62% of department managers and 72% of managers are probably going to look for a new job as well. A week ago, and you could still find it on my feed in LinkedIn, there was a study that said C-level, CIO, CEOs out of big companies are just quitting, and like big companies, which I found interesting, very interesting. And the number one reason was the pandemic and working from home. It's endless numbers of hours that they're working, and they're tired, and They obviously have enough money, they have enough resources, they're just quitting and looking for something else. But that's interesting, along with this third bullet, that it kind of doesn't matter who you are, whether you're an IT professional, you're a mid-level candidate, you're a senior level candidate, 10 years from retirement, you're a C-level person. People are looking, they're tired. So it's interesting. This is really changing everything. Every recession and every bull market, we kind of see this, where there is this pivotal point where employees have the power, if you will. They're able to make demands on salary because of the talent shortage. This is unlike anything because of the pandemic, because of working from home and remote and so forth. This is really, really unusual. Next slide, please. So I think this is important. Not, again, I don't want to alarm you. I don't want to get you into a mental stance of competition, because there is no competition. You are you, your skill set is yours. You have something to offer an employer. But I think it's good that you kind of know the profile of the job seeker out there along with yourself. So definitely pay, benefits, definitely looking for a reasonable working situation where they're not going to have a lot of burnout. So let me give you an example. In the last probably 3 months, feedback that I had gotten on some IT skill sets was, we presented our job offer and then the candidate went to Amazon. And then the candidate called us back in 3 months and said, I'd like to revisit your job offer because Amazon is making me work morning, noon, and night. And there is no work-life balance and I can't get away from my computer at home. It sounded good. They offered me a whole lot of money, but my life-work balance is not there. And I didn't sign up for this and I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So people are looking for that. They're looking to be able to put in reasonable hours if they're working from home, shut their computer and have a life. And so that's definitely pushing everybody's motivation to look, or if they're unemployed, to look for those kinds of jobs. Minimally, people, particularly in Dallas, are looking for hybrid kinds of jobs. So in the office 2 days a week, home 3, that kind of thing. Towards the end of these bullets, I do want to comment on this. 3 of my very good friends left a very large fintech company last year, and they all took other offers and for substantial more money. They were in those jobs about 6, 7 months, 8 months, and all of a sudden they're starting to look for something else. And the commentary was, I'm bored. And I thought, wow, you made huge money making that change and you're bored. And their concern was their growth opportunity wasn't there. And to each and every one of them, I said, are you sure? And then the second thing I said was, you've got it pretty good right now. You might be bored, but you have some time off to develop some other things outside of work. Are you sure you want to detonate this and go do something else? 2 of the 3 did that. The third person didn't, because frankly, he has 2 small children and he really loves taking them to school, being a part of them and having energy at the end of the day to be with them. And that was developed during the pandemic, and he really values that in his family. And so he actually kind of took that in and was like, maybe I probably wouldn't make a move unless it was right, kind of thing. So beware of that. If you are working and you're listening to this and your whole thing is growth opportunity, careful. You can end up with something that looks like growth and it's not great. It's not great for other reasons. Company culture is a big thing that all companies are concerned about. A lot of topics in HR and discussions, because if you're working remote, you may not feel a part of a culture. So literally a job change is just closing a laptop, mailing it back and getting a new laptop and logging on. There's no feel of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And so that's something that HR is starting to look at and be concerned with right now as well. So how you personally define company culture in your job search is important. And I would suggest that you really look at, what does that mean to you? Because to me, it meant very specific things, and to somebody else, it means something else. So I think thinking about that, how you want to be treated, what advancement looks like to you, what does the job look like to you? That's all going to be important stuff for you to evaluate as you're going into these interviews, and to have clarity on that before you interview. And we'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, So if you're out there in the job search, whether you're unemployed or employed, this is what you're likely to experience. There are lots of opportunities in general. When I was in my own job search, I was amazed at how much was out there, particularly if you're looking in LinkedIn, which I would say is probably one of the #1 tools right now. There is also some remote sources, like remote boards out there that you can look at as well. But you're going to find lots of it, lots of stuff you're qualified for, lots of companies that are like, oh, I hadn't thought of working for them before, that are going to be of interest to you. You're going to get lots of recruiters calling you. And some of them are going to have a good presentation and a nice approach, and others aren't. But their approach doesn't necessarily mean the opportunity is bad. It just means they're not very good at their job, or just it doesn't give you a warm, fuzzy feeling. You're also going to find, along with your candidacy, unlike a year ago, lots of tenured people leaving their jobs. And when I mean tenured, I mean people like myself that were working 10 or 20 years for one company that then decided to put their resume out there, and now they're looking. So that's a pretty strong candidate. And if you're in your last job a shorter period of time or what have you, it depending on the company they're coming out of, that's going to be tough to walk away from. You can expect multiple video interviews with different kinds of people, depending on the process. Some large companies, they have very rigorous interview process. Some companies I've heard, they'll have 10 people on Zoom screens. Now you don't even know who you're talking to, which can be unnerving. So get ready and get prepared for that. Still, video calls are going to be the bulk of what we're seeing this year. And the big thing is, when you do take that job offer, please dial down your expectations in terms of your first, second, third, and seventh day on the job, because it's bumpy. The onboarding is really bumpy. It doesn't seem to matter what company you work for. You could get your laptop and you don't have your VPN for 3 days, right? And you're anxious because you think your boss really wants you working and you can't because the tools don't work. Or you'll be there 2 weeks before you have access to certain areas, and that's a big chunk of your job. So breathe into it. Expect when you onboard for it to take time. People really will be patient with you, your boss included, and they'll frankly be a little embarrassed on the back end. But don't expect you open up a laptop or you go to the office and everything is smooth sailing. It's unlikely. So just breathe into it, work yourselves through the process, and don't get anxious, because it's really not about you at all. Just try to be gracious and understanding. Next slide. Okay, so again, your competition, but take it easy on that word. It's just really about who's out there and who's looking. PricewaterhouseCoopers, 65% of people are looking for a new job. Robert Half said that people in Dallas nationwide, again, 48% of people in Dallas right now, #1 reason, more money, better perks, remote. Those are all big pieces of why they're looking. And so that's a reality. We keep talking about how many jobs there are out there, but a lot of job seekers. In my own company now, I flat out told them, like, lead with Dallas. If you can have that position remote, lead with Dallas, because we already know they're looking. So that means they're looking, they'll take the call. And then think about that, every 2 out of 3 people that you currently work with right now are trying to leave. So it's across all skill sets, all levels, all everything. It's not just IT or accounting or C-level, it's everybody right now, which is interesting. Next slide. So these are the biggest mistakes that I see with job seekers now, and I'm still actively coaching. I've got 3 clients right now that I'm working with. And interestingly enough, the agony isn't around the resume or the search. In other words, where to look or the mechanics of the search. The real focus with clients that I'm working with right now is the interviews, but not interviews in terms of how they present, interviews in terms of making sure they're vetting the opportunity carefully to meet their goals and their personal requirements. So the #1 thing that I ask everyone is, if you are to leave your job, what are the top 3 things that need to be there in order for you to go? And it may not be money. And you have to almost write all that down so that you really understand that. Because as these opportunities come to you, you're not going to be jumping at them thinking, oh, this is great, this is exciting. You already know what you need. When I left a company after 10 solid years and really good performance, when I left, I was very clear in what I wanted. But it took me some time to get that. And I had to really think about that. If somebody were to say, we're going to offer you this, what's really going to be making me want to leave and really give notice and leave and walk away versus not? And what I found for me, it was about culture. And I think my husband said it perfectly. He said, Elizabeth, you're not looking for a bigger house, you're looking for a better neighborhood. And he was absolutely true. I was not looking for a bigger house. That's not what I was interested in. And I was clear about having my freedom and still being able to do the things that I wanted to do in my personal life. But it was really about who am I going to work with? And when it's really going bad on a bad day, how do they act? And then the companies, for me, it was the company's moral compass. And could I point to tangible things that minimally said they were trying to improve and they were concerned about other things. They didn't have to be perfect. I wasn't looking for perfection, but what were they really about? And could I really understand that in the interview? Because on their website is marketing. And there's a lot of that out there. Sustainability is a big buzz. Diversity is a big buzz. Well, everybody's got that buzz, right? But when you're in interviews, to really say to them, when was the last time you promoted a female into leadership, and tell me about that? You're going to get some response. And if you get dead air and a pause, and that's important to you, then maybe that's not the place for you. And this is what I'm talking about when I say vet the opportunity. So you can make one move once and you're not 6-7 months into it, and now we're in recession, you're stuck, because that's where this is all going. Really looking at what is it for you, writing that down. The biggest mistake I see people do is having very unfocused interviews. They don't have 5 questions written down that are beyond compensation or is my position remote. They don't have detailed questions written down about what their own values are to really vet what the opportunity is. Now, if it's not important to you, then it doesn't matter. But if it's something that's important, then that should be a factor. The other piece too is, I would say, if you have a network of any kind, to run that opportunity through them and call them and say, hey, what's it really like to work at JP Morgan Chase? You've been there 10 years or what have you. Or what do you really know about this company? Do you know anything about them? And what I found was my network was very, very powerful. And literally what they said, I saw creep up in interviews. And that helped me to make a decision one way or the other. You have to be a little careful with that, because some feedback is subjective and it could be their opinion. But even then, that's good to have in the back of your mind. For example, I asked a very good friend of mine in a very large banking financial institution, she worked there, what's their diversity like? Like, where do they stand on that hot topic? What's it like there? And she was a woman of color, over 40. And I said, what's it like there? And she paused and she said, well, I read a lot of emails about it. That told me everything. Now, that may or may not have been a hot button for me, but if it was, that information coming from a diverse person would matter to me. When I ask somebody how they're treated in an organization, what's it like? What's it like on a bad day? I'm listening to that kind of feedback. So again, really think about what you want. You can have more of what you want than you think you can, but the bigger thing is really calling out what's an opportunity for you. And this window is short. This is not going to go on very long. It may not even go on throughout the year where you have these kinds of opportunities present. So you just really want to be ready. And again, going into my coaching clients, we spend a lot of time in interviewing. We spend a lot of time in how they want to word things, how they want to ask things. We go through a lot of time looking at 2 and 3 and 4 offers in front of them and going back to their original goals. We're not spending a ton of time on the perfection of the resume. We're not, because they're going to get calls unless it's a nightmare. They're going to get a call. It's really about the other pieces and what's good for them and good for them long-term. Next slide. Okay, virtual interviews. We've all done this probably, but so this is just a quick little reminder on how to keep your virtual interviews crisp and clean, and maybe just a cut above. So general rules here around webcams, etc. Next slide. I always like to throw this in. This is kind of the emotions that you'll go through the job search. So I'll tell you a quick little personal story. I went through this. And so this is really interesting because, you know, I was about to leave a company after 10 years. And I remember distinctly the day where it all fell apart for me. And it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. And I went out for a run. And I ran a little bit, and then all of a sudden I had all this emotion come up that was uncontrollable. And I literally sat down on a curb and I cried. And when I got home, because I'm not a crier, my husband took one look at me and went, "Oh my God, what is going on? What happened?" And I said to him, the job is ended. I have to let it go. I can't stay here anymore. This is awful. This is really awful. And so if you look here, ending, denial, shock, fear, that was all coming up. And he said, "I find this really interesting because you've coached for 20 years and you've been in the game for a long time, but I find it really interesting that it's you. So what are you worried about?" And I said, "You know, it's very similar to the clients over all these years. It's like, who's going to want me? And what if I don't have enough? And what if I'm not the prettiest girl at the dance when I go out there? And I said, and I know my mind enough to know that that is just all stuff I've heard other people say over the years. I don't even believe it totally, but those feelings are there. And I don't want to feed the feelings because the feelings they're not true, you know?" And he said, "No, they're not true." And so he said, "Look, you can have your feelings, but promise me one thing, write your resume this weekend and then table it." And I would give that advice to anybody. And so I did. I wrote a resume. It was terrible. It was terrible when I wrote my own resume. It was terrible. And I put it aside. And this is like November. And so I kept thinking, oh, it'll slow down. It'll get better. No, November wasn't good. December wasn't good. January wasn't good. Then a couple of pieces of information that only I would know as an insider with the company came to me. And then another piece of information, like it all happened within a week. And I went, okay, we're done here. And on April 3rd, I put out officially my first application online. And right around that time, I was doing this graph in front of you. And so on Monday, I would be a little bit rested from the weekend. I'd be like, oh, it's not so bad. It's okay. So I'm in this hope, enthusiasm area. And then by Tuesday, 11 o'clock, you know, literally 10 people have blown me up in IM and email and are extremely rude. And now I'm going right into anger. And I can't move out of that. And by Wednesday, I'm like, damn it, I'm going to start my search. And then I eke through the week. And then the weekend happens and the pressure comes down. This nonsense of not committing to a job search, this nonsense about being afraid to put it out there, about not being accepted, whatever that is just garbage in your head. And you can keep doing that as long as you want, but you put yourself through your own pain and misery, nobody else but you. And then the job search, the same thing happens. Oh, I got a call. So you go into acceptance, hope, enthusiasm, commitment to leave. And then you get the decline 3 weeks later. And now you're back into this fear, anger, frustration. So that whole thing during the actual search, the best I can tell you is try not to ride the waves. Try to stay very even keeled as best as you can. And I remember at one point, my husband was so like upset with me, and he never gets upset. And he said, you just need to go read your second book. And it really humbled me and chastised me. And so at 5 a.m, I swear to God, you guys, I came in this office and I closed the door while he was still sleeping. And I literally opened up, I Quit Working for You as a Worry. I literally read my own book and went, oh, wait, I know how to do this. Oh, it's a process. It's not a feeling. It's going to be fine. And so I read my own book and it worked. And I would say that to you, like this whole thing with your emotions, as compassionately as I can say this, try not to ride the highs and the lows, whether you get the call or not. Try not to think that you know this is the job for you, because you don't, but you can vet it properly. So stay as much as you can to your process, right? Stay to what you want, what you don't want, why you're looking, stay to that. That's truth. That's your compass, right? The rest of it, try not to ride the highs and lows because it will really make you crazy and it's not worth all that. And then what happens is you will not have the clarity to make a decision. And also that's where a good coach can come in to really kind of help you on those days where it's all over the place. So anyway, take it from somebody who just did it and did it very successfully. I'm in this role. It's a much, much bigger role. And it's a great job and it's a great boss. And, you know, it's 9 months in or whatever, and it's really going well. In fact, I wouldn't say they're promoting me, but they're expanding my role considerably. And they're great people to work with. And it has not been pretty on a lot of days. And that's all I wanted. So think about it. What do you really want? What has to be there? And really kind of be gentle and careful with yourself when you go into these emotions. See that and see if you can't pull yourself out of the spin. Next slide. Okay. So this is exactly why a coach is good for you. I was fortunate because my husband was the sounding board, and when he saw me spiraling down, he would grab me and he would often just look at me and say, I just find this so interesting because, you know, you are the coach and now you're having the experience. And that has been so valuable to me in my own coaching practice now, because you can have all the answers and you can hire people for 20 some odd years, but until you go through the actual physical experience of what things feel like, what happens is my coaching is now deeper, at a much deeper level, because I understand it now at a cellular level. So the reason you would even consider a coach at this point is just to really have that impartial party that you can bounce things off of, and it's not a family member or a friend, or is going to tell you what you want to hear or console you. It's truly an impartial party. You've paid a fee for that. You're paying for a service, and it's a coach that you resonate with and you trust that's going to help you to go through the process. You may not need a full, I'm not doing full coaching sessions with all my clients. They're not going 8 weeks with me, like in recession. They're going, 4 sessions with me and we're done. And they have more than enough to go out there and do things. So look at the coaching practices and the programs they have and make sure it's a good fit for you. And they should also be able to help you to explore some other options, because often we think, oh, I came out of this title and out of this grade, so now I just want to go up one. But there are other things that you might be able to do. Right. So for example, I'm working with an IT executive that's got a background in infrastructure. She's amazing. She's coming out of a huge tech company. And she said, but I built an IAM platform and I think I want to go be a director of IAM. And I'm like, we can absolutely do that. And so there's 2 resumes for that. And there's 2 different paths for her to look at jobs. And so you want somebody that can advise you on the market and where else you would fit. And then somebody that can really help you to evaluate offers, because you're going to have a lot of them, and just to evaluate what's good for you based off of the goals that you've set for yourself. So that way you don't get wooed into some company and then you're looking again in another 6 months. Next slide. Okay, so these were my sources that I wanted to leave with you. And everybody is welcome to the deck. That's no problem there. And then I think that's it. Oh, the book, the plug for the book. So there it is. And I've read it and it's very good, actually. It's very enlightening. And, whenever anybody comes to this group, and I've spoken with Jeff's group for a lot of years, and I think the world of this group in Dallas, it's a very high quality, high caliber group, great experts here all the time. I always offer, if you want just a 15-minute session with me, just for me to review your resume, give you some feedback, I'm happy to do it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. We can set up an appointment. Happy to do that. And join me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of Lyonsology people out there that we share information, and I'm happy to connect you to anybody in my network if you're in search, or maybe you want to network. You are interviewing. You wanted to see if a company's solid. If I have a contact there, I'm happy to connect you. And that was all I had for this morning.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I will make sure I send this deck out. I will attach the deck to the email I put out this afternoon. Leon, you had a question. You want to unmute your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, if you guys can hear me okay. Am I coming in all right?
Yep, we hear you.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for the information. I just had a question. I've had recruiters contact me, and the job will come with the description and it'll say location, and the location will say like a city, but then it'll have remote in parentheses next to it. And so I didn't know if that means that if you're not in that city, that you'd still be applicable for it. So for example, I've seen like them have location Boston, MA, but then remote next to it. So are they sending me relevant opportunities? Or are they really looking for somebody that can do remote only in Boston?
So here's a great way to answer this. It's a trick within the applicant tracking system itself. In like the system that I work in now, it's called ISOMs. And in ISOMs, I have to lead with a city and then put remote. I can't just post it remote. Workday, you can post it remote. And most of the bigger companies, and frankly, the whole world is moving towards Workday as an ATS tool. So if I was a job seeker, I would assume they're leading with Boston, but the position can be remote.
Okay, thanks. I wasn't sure. I just confused me a little bit. So thanks.
Yeah, it's a quirk in our system now that we can't correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Leon. Meredith, you had a question. You want to ask it? Let you unmute your mic and ask.
Sure, thank you. Hope everyone's doing good. Elizabeth, I had a question. Great presentation. Thank you for that. What suggestions do you have for choosing or selecting a recruiter to work with if you're being contacted by multiple recruiters?
Yeah.
And should you work with multiple recruiters, or what is a good number of recruiters to work with? I don't want to overextend myself with all these recruiters.
Well, that's very wise, because chances are the recruiters are all working on the same jobs, and you don't want to blanket yourself. And frankly, if recruiter A submits you to that company and that job, and B, C, D, F recruiters, they all have the same job, you can only be submitted once anyway. Otherwise, it's double submission and they don't get paid. It's a whole thing. And I think they also have something called the right to represent, or they did years ago in Dallas, which is a whole other bag of cats, which is not fun. In my own opinion, I would go with 2 recruiters, and I would look them up on LinkedIn, and I would see how long they've been in the field. Anything less than 10 years, I personally would not take my career there. They would have seen one recession. The other problem is recruiters are extremely overinflated and in demand. You can have a very poor junior level recruiter making $100,000 a year right now. Top recruiters make $130,000 right now. That's all going to flush out in the wash in the next 6 to 8 months, because they're not going to be able to perform at a higher level. And once we go into recession, there's not going to be the need, and it's a self-correcting system. But never in my career have I seen it this overinflated and this many running at you. So I would really look at them over in LinkedIn and see how long. And then if you feel good about that, like they kind of passed your test there, when you get them on the phone, I would flat out ask them, like, have you worked with this client before? Have you placed people there before? What do you know about them? Or are they just reading something off a script? Because the more they know that, if they say, hey, I've worked with this client for 5 years and I placed a lot of, they know the culture, they can speak to that, they can guide you, they can help you at a deeper level than just trying to fill a job. Because right now they are candidate light, right? They don't have a lot of candidates. And so there's a lot of pressure for them to close that jobs and make money. You don't want to be their fee. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be a person. And so in my book, I Quit, there is a whole section on how to work with recruiters, actually, because it's a game and how they're paid and the whole thing. If you understand it, you will buyer beware who you align your career with.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? You're welcome to unmute your mic and ask away. So I have a question. You talked a couple of times about vetting that job, or what are some of the, can you go into a little bit more detail as far as what you should be doing? I mean, to me, that would be interesting. I need to find a speaker who just can talk about vetting a job out, because I think that'd be a very interesting topic.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Let me know. Maybe we book something like that as a follow-up to this. That'd be fine. So let me think about my own job search. So I gave that question to a client, right? A client had come to me. We had a Saturday morning session, and she wasn't finding a job, and she was with her company 8 years, and she wasn't happy. And I just said, Christina, what's it going to take for you to walk away? Like, seriously, what are the top 3 things that you need? And as soon as I hung up the phone, I went and did that exercise. And so that's the first place you start. What are the top 3 things that I need to give notice and walk away from this? And when I wrote it out, number 1 was culture, culture, culture. I'm not interested. I'll help anybody. I'm not interested in somebody yelling at me. I can take a couple of those a week, or I can take one grumpy personality a week. But when the whole culture is about negativity and pressure, and we don't email you to ask a question, we CC 15 other people to like call you out or do weird public embarrassment, I'm not interested. I'm a top performer, top. Like, I was never treated like this before. And after the merger, I'm treated like this, you know what, I'm done. And so, in fact, the feedback when I gave notice was, we were shocked because you never complained. I'm like, well, who cares if I complain? Nobody cares. I care. I had to get out. So I think, you know, for me, it was that money was my last. And so when I did interviews, I asked questions like, on a really bad day, what does it look like here? When you put emails out, you know, who gets CC'd and why? When somebody is angry, what does that look like? Like, what does a bad day look like? Was it a process that broke down? Was it, because that was really critical to me. That was the number one thing. And then I really looked at who I would report to. And I would ask questions like, when you say you're supporting an employee, what does that look like to you? And then how do you like information? Do you want me to give you reports? Do you want me to give you a quick phone call? Do you want me to pop you an email? How do you like to lead? Like, you know, there's a lot of leaders, especially in remote environments, they want to lead through email. And so she's like, I need you to read the email and respond to that. Okay, well, then that's how she likes to do it. Now it's my choice if I want to be in that environment. Do you see what I mean? So I'm asking questions like that. I interviewed with Visa. They had some very interesting things on their website about sustainability. They had some very interesting things about their board. And I asked the recruiter that, and there's a little bit of a tap dance. Like, he was a little bit surprised that I read that. And I was like, oh, interesting. You work there and you can't really speak to this. So is it marketing or is it real? That's a flag. If I ask you a question, it's an open-ended question. And if you are silent or tap dance, I'm going to pick that up. And if I pick that up, I have to really question, do you not know the job? And maybe they don't. And maybe you ask the same question, 3 other people in the interview panel, and that's fine. But they're open-ended questions based off of what's the most important to you, right? And so if remote's important to you, you know, you ask that sort of things. But that's what I mean by vetting. So the first is your own personal fact find. These are the 5 things that have to be there, or I do not give notice, period. I was 10 minutes into a call in one interview and I'm like, I'm not the candidate for you. And she's like, no, you're not, but you're fabulous. I'm like, what? I'm not for you. We're not doing this. You know, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say that. I was absolutely wowed when Goldman Sachs called me. I mean, wowed. I was like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? But I got into that interview and I was like, oh, this isn't for me. And I was clear, because I was clear in that, because I knew where I was, I knew my motivations for leaving, and I could pick up indicators, whether said or unsaid, if it was a good fit for me. And it is okay to turn down a company that you think is wow, an Amazon, a Google, a Goldman. It's okay. I empower you to do that, because you're saving yourself a whole, let me tell you, if you pick it up in the interview, it doesn't get better and it gets way worse. And they're paying you $35,000 more. And let me tell you, you are 3 months into that job and that $35,000 isn't worth it at all of a sudden. So they will throw money at you, big name companies, this, that, the other thing. Forget it. Go back to, what do you really need and want to leave? And you get questions around that and you present that way. That's what I did. And that's what I coach my clients. I actually write the questions for my clients. I'm like, go ask them this. And they do. And then I'm like, and don't make any decisions. Come back and tell me what they say. And let me hear it. And so a lot of times they'll have an answer and I'll say, no, they said that, what they really mean is this. And then they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, you were right. Because there's all this unsaid stuff. When I've been around long enough, I can coach the game. So anyway, that's how I would approach it.
Okay, interesting topic. I think I will contact you and we will do a whole session just on that. So one other question that I've got, you talked in one of the statistics you presented was that, you know, 40 to 60% of supervisors and managers are going to be switching jobs or wanting to look for a new job. Mm-hmm. then doesn't that make the whole interview process sort of difficult, because you may be interviewing with person A, take the job, and 2 weeks later, that person's now gone, which then changes the whole dynamic of what's happening.
So you could ask questions. I mean, you can ask questions like, why do you work here? And I looked on your LinkedIn, you've been here like 15 years. What do you like about it here? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? There are a lot of people that they're not going to leave because it's a slow, comfortable thing and they can do it and it's fine. And they want to sit down. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to sit down during that time. So you could ask questions about like, why are you here? Why do you want to be here? I don't know. You could get bold and say, look, everybody's looking for another job. Do you see yourself in that category? I mean, if you're really worried about it, you could kind of get the elephant out of the room. And you could say, the reason I asked that is because part of my search, it is contingent on who I report to. That matters to me. And so I just want to, as much as you can tell me and disclose, do you see yourself here in 3 years? You see. And again, you're going to know, you throw out a ball like that, if there's silence, if there's pause, if there's tap dancing, you know the answer. You do not have to ask more, So, yeah, and you have to also figure out if that's what it is for you. For me, it was the overall team, right? So I'm in talent acquisition, right? I got a global team. I got to work with India. I got to work with other countries. I got to work with HR. I got to work with C-level people. When I'm interviewing, I'm like, okay, where's the problem, child? And what does that mean? Are they harsh in communication? Do they not like to communicate? Will I sign up for this? It doesn't mean no. It just means this is the whole package. And I choose to sign up for this based off of the information I know, or it's not for me. And you gracefully bow out.
Well, I mean, boy, I'm gonna have to sit there and transcribe this whole conversation because I love all these questions that you're coming up with. I'm gonna have to make sure I jot these down. These are great. Anybody else have any comments before we wrap this up today? Comments, questions?
I'll tell you.
How do you feel about Glassdoor? How do you feel about Glassdoor reviews as far as assessing the employment culture and environment?
Yeah, so I do want to touch on that. So the company that I eventually joined, if you looked on Glassdoor, you would run, not walk, you would run. Careful on Glassdoor, because when I read every review, these are call center people. These are minimum wage hourly people saying they don't like an environment. Never one did I find anyone in the executive staff or a manager or a senior manager or even an individual contributor that at the professional level commenting. So be careful when you read that, because you think about this. This is a place where people air grievances in a public forum. Flag. So how much of that can you take? It's like when I went to my network and I was like, what do you know about JP Morgan? And what do you know about Citibank? And what do you know about Goldman? And even then, sometimes they would have some feedback that was opinion, right? And so, yes, that goes in that factoring process, but it is not the be all end all, because that's someone's emotion. And we don't know why they're saying that. Really, we don't know their motivation, true motivation of why they're saying that. I think it's a small data point. It's not a big data point, what you read on Glassdoor. And that's where running it through your network is really valuable.
Okay.
Great. Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
I'll tell you, if I had not gone through this experience, I mean, boy, did I go through it. This is such a different coach in front of you. I mean, I have more empathy, more compassion, more patience, more love, all of it. I mean, I get it. But it's possible. I did it. I read my own book. So, I mean, it's possible. And, that's really what I want to leave with you today, is just that.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you very, very much. Great information. I think everybody here has enjoyed the session. If you want to connect with, I'll put Elizabeth's contact information in the email up that this afternoon. I'll have the PowerPoint slides in the presentation. And if you do want to connect with Elizabeth, be sure to send her a personal note. Let her know that you saw her here today, what you liked about her presentation, something, just so she knows that, you're just not some fly-by-night person trying to connect. So Elizabeth, once again, thank you very, very much. Next Friday, we will have open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. We can follow up with what we talked about today, about other issues. So please, join us next Friday. You have questions, we'll answer your questions, whatever those are for you. If you have not put your 30-second reductions into the chat window, we ask that you do that now so that we can make sure we get you on the agenda. We make sure you get the presentation we had that Elizabeth put out this afternoon. And so if you haven't done so yet, please put that on there. That way we can count you as being with us today. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week online. Next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays, Lock Alderson will be with us to talk about how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. Next Wednesday, you can watch a practice interview, an actual practice interview with the PIC crew. That is only on Zoom, so you can't watch it on Facebook, on Zoom only, and you have to watch it live. It will not be recorded. And then next Thursday, being the first Thursday of the month, we'll talk about resumes. We've got a resume expert who will share their thoughts on effective resumes. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. I know I'm going to be recommending my son come back and watch this because he on Monday is going to tell his boss he's going to leave because give his boss 2 weeks notice on Monday. So he needs to really think about what he's looking for. So he's in that position of not being happy where he's at and, not liking that. So I will definitely be referring this video to him. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist, and down below, pick whichever playlist you like. Every video I upload, I stick into a playlist to make it easy for you. If you then don't click on the video, but down below where you see that red arrow, click View Full Playlist, and then up will come a list of all the different titles, dates, and topics. And you can go back and watch whichever one you'd like. So thank you for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.